It's working. Our 2-year-old unplugged my hard drive this morning. The joys of working from home when you got 3 kids under 5. But we don't quit, do we? No. This is why we're going to discuss today the dreaded fat loss hump. If you are a fella like me, over 40, you got kids, you've got ambient stress, and you feel like your fat loss is not going anywhere, this is going to make a lot of sense to you. Because it doesn't happen in a straight line. And most fellas walk away before the real progress kicks in. So today we're going to discuss 3 things. The first is why your body hides that early progress, how to prove to yourself it's working even when the mirror seems like it's not, and how to survive that hump phase when you've got a family and you've got kids. Now, you can do this with me or on your own, but either way, what you absolutely need is clarity. Do the scorecard. It's in the description below. It takes a few minutes. You discover exactly what your blind spots are instantly, and then how you can address those. And I've done it with tons of fellas before. It works. So let's get into the good stuff. Fat loss after 40 feels broken. High effort, 0 results. What everyone expects is the big straight line like a slide. You go down, your inputs are instantly rewarded with your outputs, and this should be the same every day, every week. And then if it isn't, we get sad, we get fed up, and we try the next gimmick. So what actually happens is it's a long, flat stretch. Nothing happens initially. Then there's a steep curve where everything else changes, and it feels like it's all at once. The danger zone is that flat length, because this is where you're putting the effort in, but you don't see the evidence and the reward. And nobody quits during the steep part, but very few people get there. What's happening inside your body? Because we only see the outside, we only see the mirror. Water masks fat loss. So imagine you are a big old sponge. When you take that sponge and you dip it in loads of grease, you put it on a weighing scales. It's going to be fairly heavy. Right? And then you wring all that grease out and you dip it in a big bowl of water and put it back on the scales. It's going to be heavy. When you start exercising, your body is going to want to retain water and glycogen. So it is getting rid of fat, especially when you clean up your diet, but it's holding on to more water to repair itself, because exercise is chronic inflammation. The good news is that water retention starts to go away after a few weeks, but people don't wait to that point because the mirror doesn't look like it's changing and the scale doesn't look like it's changing. Also, muscle and fat trade places. So muscle is heavier than fat. You've probably seen those videos, and I've got the little things from Amazon, the 5 pounds of fat, 5 pounds of muscle, and it shows you that muscle is much denser and heavier than fat. In other words, you can weigh the same but look dramatically different, which is the whole premise of body recomposition. So fat leaves you, but it's not the fat you can see. So it's not the subcutaneous pinchable fat around the midriff. It's the fat underneath that strangles your internal organs, your visceral fat. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put a little link here to my video about visceral fat. It's very YouTube, isn't it? And if you're listening, sorry, but you can search it. It's the dangerous fat after 40 around your midriff. So that visceral fat goes, and the mirror won't tell you that. You'll feel different, but often we only rely on the scales and what we see. And your eyes are the worst judge, because you are so used to looking at yourself. You are so used to judging yourself. And when you look in the mirror, your eyes go straight to the belly, right? The chin. And you think, oh, well, I've still got a belly. But lo and behold, you don't realize that belly has shrunken. Right? There's been a redistribution of weight. What tends to happen is people notice first. People will say to you, you've lost weight around the face, so I can see your cheekbones. That's what happened to me. I didn't realize I was losing weight. My mate said to me, start exercising with me. And this is when I was really overweight. And I wasn't really overweight, but I've never been obese. Okay? But I've been bloated. I've had a belly, skinny fat physique. Definitely not happy and definitely self-conscious. And when I went away on a camping trip, went to like a lad's camping trip, one of the fellas I hadn't seen for a year, shout out to Ben, said to me, "Oh, Kev, man, your face, you can see all your cheekbones and this." I didn't realize, we're fully clothed. But then he said that, I thought, wow, okay, maybe I am. This is actually working. And then when I went traveling, I went to Thailand, people would comment on my physique and say, "Oh, you're really lean." And I thought, I don't see myself that way. So I'd done all the work. I went from bloated and overweight to lean, but my identity hadn't caught up yet. So other people will notice before you do, and it's going to take a while for you to catch up. And this is why people often lose the weight and then they gain it back again because they're not used to that new identity. It feels uncomfortable. But there's a fantastic quote, and remember this: if you want a new you to be born, the old you has to die. And that is something that needs to be mourned. You need to accept, okay, how I used to identify myself as, I used to go to Nando's so much, they'd laugh at me. I couldn't sit down with my wallet in my back pocket because I had so many Nando's loyalty cards. If you don't know what Nando's is in America, it's basically like KFC or chicken shop. That's how regularly I went there. And then save a bit of Nando's, on one night and have it the next day for breakfast. Not good. But I still saw myself as that person, even when I was lean and healthy. So don't be relying on your own self-critical eye. Right? Rely on other people's opinion who are close to you, especially the compliments. Take the photos of yourself, same lighting, same condition. You're not squeezing or flexing. Use a tape measure and notice the notches on your belt going down. So that's how your body hides the progress, and that's how you can spot it early on and be aware of it. But there is a 3-week quit point, essentially. So the pattern is you start strong, you got 2 good weeks, the scale stalls, there's one chronic or chaotic family weekend, and then the whole thing is shelved. Right? And you'll start saying, do you know what? I'm going to wait till things calm down. I'll wait till the kids are off school. I'll wait till the kids are back in school. You know the story. So that's the general pattern. And then the internal story is, maybe my metabolism is broken. Maybe it's my age. Maybe this doesn't work for me. I need to try a different diet or a different exercise regime because the evidence hasn't arrived yet. So you get fed up. And this is multiplied when you're a father because you've got limited time. So that time is so precious. When you spend it away from your kids or away from working, if it doesn't give you an instant return, it feels like a waste. And you've probably lived this loop before because it's the diets work and then they stop working, whereas really it's you that stopped having patience. So this is what makes being older, unfortunately, it take longer. Because although we can slow the process of aging, it does play in a factor. And our hormones are not the same. So because our testosterone gets lower as we get older, our body responds slower to this stimulus. It's the same destination, it's just a longer runway. And then you've got recovery debt. So in other words, because we got kids, last night I was up at midnight and then 3, and then finally I woke up at 4 with our 2-year-old. So this doesn't happen when you're 24 and you got no responsibilities. And that's going to eat into your recovery. So expect slower progress. And then you got stress as well. So stress compounding with the poor sleep is going to raise your cortisol. So if your cortisol is high, that's also going to retain water. And this is a natural survival mechanism. So seeing the body changes takes a little bit longer because not only is the exercise retaining the water, so is the added stress. So what's really important is not to weigh yourself daily. Don't do that because it's so unreliable. You might be holding on to more water, more sodium from the night before, plus the stress. Instead, weigh yourself monthly. And then that's the best way to judge. Because there's many rows to this, like there's many ways to skin a cat, right? But the most important thing is you keep going in the same direction. Now, quitting is the biggest cost factor because what tends to happen is if it doesn't work, we stop. And then our internal narrative is, okay, I failed. I can't do this. And every time you abandon that plan, it reinforces that identity that I'm a yo-yo dieter. I'm someone who tries to exercise as opposed to I am an exerciser. And then this is a lesson that you subconsciously absorb, even if you don't realize it. You think, oh, I'll try again next year, or I'll try this thing, try that thing. But then the right time never comes along. So you need to think about your life in decades instead of days. Right? So in other words, what's your goal if you're 44 when you're 54, as opposed to I want to look or be like this time next week, this time next month, or for this holiday, for this occasion. Progress compounds over time, but it goes in stages. So the first stage, week 1 and 2, is your sleep will deepen. And this, although we can't control how long we sleep as dads, we're getting woken up a lot and having to wake up early with little kids, we can control the depth of sleep. Now, when I put my head on the pillow, I'm asleep instantly. But that never used to be the case. And once your sleep starts deepening, especially the first half of the night, which is more important than the second half of the night in terms of recovery, then your energy is going to start to steady. So in other words, you wake up and you feel like you've recovered from the day before. But this is invisible from the outside. You're going to notice this only internally. And week 3 to 5, your strength is going to start to climb. So in other words, you'll notice that in the gym, you're able to lift more. You're either lifting more volume, i.e. more weight, or more repetitions. You'll also notice that your appetite calms down. Because you're getting energy from the training, you don't need the energy from the actual food itself, normally the junk food. And those two things, better sleep, better energy, lower appetite for craving, then that also usually gets rid of that 3 p.m. slump that you feel after lunch. And this becomes a self-fulfilling loop. And then by week 6 to 10, you notice, all right, my waist has gone down a little bit. My clothes are fitting better. My face, my bone structure feels a little bit sharper, looks a bit sharper. But we have to look beyond the mirror because the scale is very deceiving, as mentioned at the start. Whereas the tape, the tail of the tape never lies if you do the right conditions. So when you wake up in the morning, once a week, not once a day, have a poo. But before you eat and before you drink anything, take a fabric tape measure and measure your waist. Right? And this is not belly sucked in, this is belly relaxed around the navel. And then do that once a week. Now, if you find that you need a coffee in the morning to get the bowels going, that's fine. Have your coffee, do your poo, then take your waist measurement. But the next week, make sure you do the exact same thing. No food, no drink before you take your waist measurement. Notice your belt. Notice your shirts, right? Because there might be items of clothing in the wardrobe that you haven't been able to wear for a while. And then all of a sudden you think, oh, these are starting to fit now, or I'm down a belt notch. I'm able to fit my shirt without my belly sticking out. And I remember once I was in a nightclub and a girl made a comment about my buttons looked like they were going to burst because of my belly. Whew, that hurt. But yeah, so that's something I was always aware of then when I put on a shirt. I'm like, oh, I'm not having to suck my belly in now anymore. This shirt is not bursting at the seams, which is nice. The other thing is the training log. Make sure you're noticing what you do in the gym. If you gets measured gets managed. So notice, am I lifting more? Am I able to run for longer? Is my resting heart rate lower? And that's one of the best indications of good cardiovascular health is in the morning time, what is my resting heart rate? The lower, the better. Like 40 beats per minute, for example, is athlete status, especially in your 40s. Take your monthly photographs, not daily photographs. And when you take these photographs, as I mentioned, have the exact same setup. So make sure the lighting is the same and be honest with yourself, front, side, and back, because you see these before and after photographs online. And the after photograph is downlit. They're covered in baby oil, they've got fake tan on and they're slightly flexing and they've got a fresh haircut as well all of a sudden. Whereas before, they're balding or their hair's really shaggy and they're being lit from the front and there's no baby oil or fake tan. So don't lie to yourself. The photograph is for you and your reference of your qualitative data. And then finally, notice your energy. So we did this on our weekly check-in in our community. What's your energy like with the kids? What's your energy like with the missus? And do you have patience in the evening time? Because when your testosterone is low, that makes you feel moody and irritable. And if you find the evening time you're still a bit chirpy, you're able to dance around, have a laugh, you're on the right track. A sip of water. Okay. So this is what the all at once phase looks like, or the moment, should I say. You'll go into work and a colleague or an old friend or even your wife is going to say, you look different. You lost weight. Your skin looks better. Your hair looks better. These are things we don't think about as fellas. We only think about six-pack, muscles, shredded. What about your skin? My missus says to me now, she said, if I met you, she's got a heart of gold, but she's also very honest. She's like, if I met you before you got fit, I would not have found you attractive at all. It doesn't even look like me. Like, I don't think, like big bloated face, no structure. I'm not the best looking fella. The lighting here is a little bit kind to me in terms of got to make the best of what you got. But I was just like basically a football on a stick. That's what my head looked like. But people will start to notice it and they'll say it to you. And take those compliments. In Ireland, people are funny about compliments. If you pay someone a compliment in Ireland, they're like, I'll go away. That's terrible Irish accent, I'm Jamaican. But, or in England, like, shut up, you kind of like, but in Americans, you're a bit better at that. You're like, yeah, I'm awesome. I'm great. And yes, we can, all that stuff. So if you're English, Irish, you've got that Catholic guilt, put it to one side. And when someone pays you a compliment, even if it's another fella, be like, okay, it's slightly homoerotic, but thank you. So that's the comment, and recognize those comments and compliments and treasure them. The wardrobe moment, your shirt fits better, your pants, your trousers, your belt buckles up one notch lower, right? The mirror catches up at last, but this is the last thing, because you haven't yet caught up to the new identity that you have. You still see yourself the old way. And that's going to be strange. You're going to feel like an imposter. That is a phase you got to get through. Because on the other side of that is your freedom. Is the way to accept my new identity. And now, for me, I went for a run today and I was only halfway through my run. I realized I was running because it's so automatic for me now. It's like brushing my teeth. I remember at the start when I tried to run, I was like, I feel so self-conscious. Everyone's looking at me. I don't look like a runner. I run funny. And now it just happens. And it's so easy now. If anything, if I don't exercise, I feel I feel weird as opposed to the other way around. And then everyone's going to call this, oh, look at your transformation. But really, it's just mathematics. Inputs equal outputs. But daily weight and daily metrics are a liar. Because when you got kids, you don't know what it's funny. Every day feels like it's the same with little kids, but also every day is out of your control. You're just managing things. So if you try to do things the same way every day, I'm going to weigh myself every day. I'm going to track my steps every day. I have to hit 10,000 steps every single day. Then the day that you don't, you think, oh, fuck it. I've messed up now. So get that out of the way. Instead, weigh yourself once a week, take your average steps for the week. So maybe you do 6,000 steps one day, you might do 14,000 steps the next day. Let's say you go for a hike or something. But then, anything that comes up, like you were working a lot, so you couldn't get out for your steps, or you went on a family trip, so you were driving a lot, or you had a curry the night before, so the weight was a little bit up, that won't throw you because you're looking at the averages over time. Use the 30-day rule. Right? The 30-day rule says that I'm going to give it at least 30 days before I make a judgment. Like if you started a business, you wouldn't say after 30 days, well, I haven't made any money, so I'll pack it in. Because when I started fully online back in 2020, at the start, it was a struggle. I didn't know how to use Zoom, software, all that stuff. And then it was ups and downs. We had 3 kids in those 6 years. Now it's 2026. And if I had stopped in those first 30 days, we wouldn't be here right now. So accept it's going to go up and down, but you need to employ some patience. Because if you don't zoom out from this and see the bigger picture, then you lose. Now, to finish, I'll put this into 4 different levers. The biggest levers you can pull, and if you just remember this is all you really need. Measure weekly, judge monthly. This is your first lever. So that's waist, that's weight. If you gain some height, that'd be great. And 1 photo. Waist, weight, 1 photo. 5 minutes, calendar reminder, non-negotiable. And that's what we do in the Apex Dad. But you can do that yourself. It's very straightforward. And then compare month to month, because this week versus last week is noise. This month versus last month is signal. Track your effort, not just your outcome. So workouts completed, protein hit, steps hit, because effort is the only metric you can fully control. And then make sure you track it as well, because if you know you're not going to write it down, which I've tried that in the past, get a wearable device, invest in an Apple Watch, a Whoop, a Garmin, because otherwise you're just guessing. Lever number 2 is never miss twice. So the rule is 1 missed workout, 1 bad day of eating, 1 late night. Right? That's life. Right? But 2 in a row, that's a different direction. And do the 50% version. So instead of saying, right, I'm going to do 30 minutes of workout 3 times a week, maybe you do 15 minutes when you've had a bad night the night before with the kids, for example. Or I'm going to do, instead of a perfect day of eating, a real good quality home-cooked high-protein breakfast. And I'm going to get 1 walk in. So that's your floor. And you can hit that even on a bad day. Kill the Monday restart. Stop that. Stop this thing of like, all right, I had a couple of pints on a Friday night with the curry. Then I woke up Saturday. I thought, well, fuck it now. I might as well just have a fry up, maybe a couple of beers while I watch the football, curry again Saturday. And then you think, I'm going to wait till Monday to restart. Nip it in the bud. You can have your curry, you can have a couple of pints, but then the Saturday morning, have your high protein home cooked breakfast and start again. The slip won't kill you. It's that gap. The longer the gap, the worse. And forget about being perfect, because what tends to happen is people do 4 perfect weeks and then go off the rails for 2 weeks instead of having 6 weeks of good enough. The third lever is make the invisible visible. So if you are old school and you like to have pen and paper, have a streak on the wall or a calendar and X your good habits. So for example, I did my 7,000 steps today, X. Or I made a high protein breakfast today, X. And see how many X's you can get in a row. And then that chain becomes something you want to protect. You don't want to break it. Use strength as your scoreboard as well. So when the mirror doesn't tell you much, the bar will talk, as in the barbell, not the bar. So every extra rep is proof that it's working, that you're able to get stronger. You're building that muscle. And then tell one person as well. So could be a mate, could be a group, like our community, could be your missus, if that's something she's interested in. But just say to them, right, I'm going to make a social contract, a couple of sentences. I am going to do this week, this month, this year, and commit to it. Because then you feel that responsibility. I've got to keep to my word. And if it works for you and you're willing to, write a memo to yourself. So, in other words, write not just the best case scenario, the worst case scenario. If I do what I said I'm going to do, what will it be like next year? What will my life be like? If I don't do what I said I'm going to do, what will my life be like? The same as it is now. And the final lever is build for the long flat, not the sprint. So choose a sustainable approach on purpose. In other words, choose something that you can do on your worst weeks. Because I was chatting to a guy just yesterday, 2 little kids, similar age to my kids, and sleep is just a nightmare at the moment. So what can he do week to week to make sure he hits his floor? Keep the food you love as well in your plan. I said to him, look, don't give up the beers. Keep the beers. Because when you've got little kids, and when I say food, it could food and drink. Every day feels like it's the same to a degree. You have to have structure, as I said before. But where's our pleasure? Where's our spontaneity? It comes from having a little glass of wine when the kids go to bed, or having a certain food you like to eat together. So it's not that you have to get rid of these foods because you need that pleasure. But what can you decrease either the portion, or the volume, so 1 drink instead of 2, the frequencies, so that every night, maybe every second night, or even the actual ingredient itself. So for example, another chap I was chatting to, he loves eating Big Macs. Who didn't love Big Mac? Well, I used to love when I was a kid. But instead of eating his Big Mac, now we have a recipe. Essentially, it's like a burrito. You can cook just some lean mince. You can make a Big Mac sauce, which is very easy to make. And he still has that, so it hits that craving, but way less calories, way less fat, and hits his macros. But he still gets that pleasure. And then protect your sleep. Right? Everyone has an alarm to wake up. No one has an alarm to go to bed. Once your kids are down in bed, that should be your notification that, okay, now it's time to us start winding down. And we should be asleep within an hour of our kids being asleep. Because when you're tired, you make bad decisions. And you think like, oh, motivation is going to solve that. It doesn't. Because motivation is linked to the word emotion. And that's fleeting. It's unreliable. So when you've had a decent sleep and you've had good quality rest in the first half of the night, you're more likely to make better decisions the next day. So to close, progress hides, then it arrives. Measure weekly, judge monthly. Never miss twice, make it visible, and build for that long flat. And the next 72 hours, take your waist measurement, right, and take a photograph. Then put a weekly check-in on your calendar and write a little memo to yourself. Make that social contract to your wife, to your friend, to a community, to your colleague. And then reset the promise. So it's not, I want to have visible abs by autumn or by the holidays. It should be, I want to have undeniable momentum. I want to be a different human being in 6 months. I want to be a consistency machine. And if you feel like it's not enough for you, you feel like this isn't doing it for you, what about your kids? What are we showing them in terms of our dedication to something that's difficult? Now, obviously you work and you pay the bills and you pay the mortgage, but what are you doing to look after yourself? Because your health is the foundation of you and you are the foundation of the family. Next thing to do is watch this video. Right? This is how to erase visceral fat, that fat that strangles your internal organs and the one that puts most middle-aged dads into an early grave.